Hi everyone. Watch More Football is back, and this one it's a bit of a special because we are not covering our normal content of just the Premier League games this week because there's none on. It's International Week, so we are going to be looking at something a little bit different, which is I think long time coming debate on PSR. But we are going to talk about some news that just hit today as well about the England manager situation. First of all, though, you are watching us on the Genreverse Sports YouTube channel. But while you're on there, please feel free to check out our main Genreverse channel. We're part of the Genreverse family. And you'll find loads more content on there, mostly on the entertainment side of things. So anime content, geek stuff, reviews, interviews, reactions, and you'll find very similar content to that in written format on lrmonline.com, which is our main website. We're all connected as part of the same family. I am one of the senior editors on lrmonline.com. I'm Cam Clark. Our producer, Kyle, is one of our other senior editors, and he takes care of most things on the Genreverse YouTube channel as well. That's mostly his bag. I'm also here with Ryan, Mick, and Dave, as always, my football friends. So, football friend. Anyway, where are we going to? Should we start with the England thing and then get into PSR, or should we go PSR first?
Let's start with
season.
It's coming home. It's coming home. Finally.
It's coming home. It's coming home because you've got a German manager. Is that what it is? Yeah. So just the news for everybody is today. It was announced today that Thomas Tuchel has been appointed the England manager. Guys, I'm going to have to do a pause here, and we'll have to pick it back up because I forgot my mum's just turned up at the door and I need to sort some stuff out. I'll be 2 seconds.
Well, this is all England chat anyway, so you don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So just leave us. We can just carry on.
All right.
I'm happy with the appointment.
I'm happy with the appointment.
I'm very happy.
I think obviously he's a really good manager, but I think it's quite a sad indictment of the amount of coaching talent in England that we've gone for German, to be honest.
Yeah, but there's no English manager there that's...
No, but that's my point. Level. That's my point.
So what do? Just sit around and wait and hope Lee Carsley does something? Because that's not the way about it. No way. Lee Carsley...
So we're going to waste a generation on that.
We've got a really good generation now, but we had quite a good generation in 2018, which is now being phased out. There's no reason we can't keep producing these players. In fact, they're getting better and better. It doesn't mean that we have to win it in 2026 or we don't win anything at all. That's the issue.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, sorry, Dave, go on.
I was going to say, other countries are getting better youth coming through as well. So I feel like everybody's catching up with us.
But no other top-tier nation is looking at a foreigner to manage them.
Thanks. I'll see you later.
Yeah, but not everybody is our budget either.
Exactly. But it doesn't matter if they're foreign or not.
Are you telling me that the German FA don't have a better budget or the same budget?
Germans are stingy. We've got Nick Alsman anyway.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have thought that because Germany went through quite a few managers and they were in a bit of a similar crisis. You wouldn't have thought that they were going to go for Carlo Ancelotti to manage them, would you?
Yeah, but so you're telling me
talent than we do.
Yeah, but you want to sit there and waste this generation of talent that we have now, like we did years ago with the likes of Scholes and Beckham and Gerrard and Rooney and all these players, right, that have just been wasted.
I think
we've got to go for a good manager that's going to get the best out of the crop that we've got now.
I think he will get England playing a lot better than they are at the minute. There's no doubt about that. I don't think that he's got the sort of the cultural intuition, for want of a better term, to actually win as a tournament. What Southgate did well is he tapped into getting people proud of playing for England again. And fine, tactically he got shown up, but there was a minimal, like a minimum effort level that he got out of the players. Tuchel will get the tactics right, but is he going to inspire that same "let's do it for England"?
I think the players are a lot closer this generation than they were last generation. I think that's just what it's like nowadays. I don't think the rivalries are like they were.
I don't think he's a guarantee of winning as a tournament in 2026.
Nothing's a guarantee.
And I don't think that 2026 is our last chance of winning a tournament either.
Well, of course, it's not. Never is. You cannot say that you've got the last.
So then, why do we need to have a German managing us at World Cup?
Let's not currently.
Yeah? It's not though.
Of course it is.
Well, how else are we going to do it?
Yeah, let's just sit and hope Lee Carsley does something good. He's not going to.
I don't think we need to win. We need to win something.
If you say it doesn't really matter that much, why not just see what happens with Tuchel for a while as well? At least get that other foreign manager at your system.
Exactly.
I think we don't need to win anything with this current clock. We're sort of in between two generations at the minute anyway. But what we need to be doing more long term is really starting to produce the elite coaches that Italy do, that Spain do, that Germany do. And if we're going to do that, we can't be then going, oh, we're going to get the best foreign manager there is available.
But we're not producing any managers.
No, fine. We're not producing any right. We're not producing any right now.
Are any going to pop up in the next 2 years?
We don't. Lee Carsley had a really good first international break. He's had a slightly shaky one this one. He might not even want the job as it is, but we've got 2 years until the next World Cup for somebody to
Would you not say somebody like a Lee Carsley, Ryan, would have to go and get a Premier League job and work their way up to prove they can do it before they got a job like England? No. Because I don't think managing the England under-21s.
I think there is a lot more.
Done that. I mean, look at all the ex-England under-21 managers that then went on and tried to be a success in club football and were ultimately shite. It doesn't really. It doesn't mean anything.
I think club football and international football are two completely different games, and that's why you've got De La Fuente. Who'd ever heard of him before he became Spain manager, and he's won the Euros. Scaloni at Argentina has done fuck all. It was basically his first job. He's won two Copa Americas and a World Cup. International football is so completely different from club football. It doesn't mean we don't need to have somebody. The one thing going for Tuchel is, like you say, he's a cup manager, and that helps.
Yeah, but that's what I was going to say.
But the squad building in international football compared to club football is very different. You can take a much more long-term view in international football in terms of squad building as well, I think.
Who's to say that that's not good for him? Do you know what I mean? I think it's a very good appointment, and it does give us the. You're saying that we don't need to win anything now. Fine. It's been about fucking 80 years since we won something. We do need to win something.
What I'm saying is, it's not like say Croatia, where their golden generation is coming to an end, and it's going to be ages until they get another crop of players that good, or Belgium. We're going to have another.
What's to say that's not going to be the case?
5 years down the line, we're going to have another lot of youngsters through.
Yeah.
Yeah, but who's going to say that they're going to be any good?
I think
structure is in place. Every other generation going
over the last
previously. I mean,
over the last 15 years since St George's Park opened, the quality of player that we've been producing as a country has gotten better and better and better. We need to start doing that with coaching, and if we're gonna appoint Tuchel now, fine.
What's that going to do with St George's Park that we're producing all these good players? How often do they spend down in St George's Park? They don't. They spend all their time at Man City's academy, Liverpool's academy. The reason you're producing a lot of good young players at the moment is because the game's popular. There's a lot of kids trying to get into it, and you're only picking the very cream of the crop to go into the Premier League level. And B, that you've got all these really exciting, probably the best managers in the world, all creating interesting tactics, all brilliant coaches, coaching these guys for a very young level all the way up. I really don't see what it's got to do with the England setup at St George's Park whatsoever. Perfectly honest.
These managers that are coming in with all these great tactics and the way of bringing youth through, what nationality are they? The Forest.
They're
not English.
I'm not trying to say that Tuchel's not a good manager. He clearly is, and he ticks a lot of boxes. But I just don't think that he has got. it's all well and good having a good tactical setup and good players, but you need that something extra and that sort of emotional pull to get you through a tournament. And I don't know that having a German in charge is going to bring that.
I don't know. I have a soft spot for him, obviously, because he's ex-Chelsea manager. And what he did to us in just a few months, like we sacked Lampard at Christmas after a bad run of form, and he completely turned us around in just 6 months. So what's to say he can't do that with England?
He'll get us playing better. I've got no doubt about that. I just don't think when you get to a tournament setting and all of the absolute circus that goes around with the media and all of that sort of thing, can he keep a camp together in those circumstances? I don't know that he can.
I think
it does tend to fall out with people, fans, whoever's above him, the media.
No, he falls out with the bosses, doesn't he? With who he can bring in and that. Like, obviously, that's not going to be the case with international football. He's got a selection of players. He knows what he's got.
He'll fall out with the media because the media will go. I mean, you know what the media are like on anyone manager. You lose one game.
Yeah, it's the same everywhere.
He'll take it off with that.
Everyone from the BBC right down to us is going to be trying to pick his side for him. And fine, that's the same in any team job, but it is dialed up to such a degree with England, especially given how long it's been. I don't see him being a unifying presence. That's the thing. He's going to make controversial decisions, and it's not going to fly because he's not Gareth Southgate and he's not an FA man, and he's a good manager. He'll improve how we play. I don't see it being the instant success that people are talking about it as, and I don't think it's worth sacrificing the development of English coaching for.
I don't think people are expecting instant success of him. I think people are just happy that we've got somebody who knows how to manage tactically.
Why? Because the media are saying
you look at all of the response, and everyone's saying, "Right, cool, England are winning the next World Cup."
Yeah, but it's like thinking Man United are going to win the next game. You know,
just because they've got Jadon Sancho.
So if he's not a guaranteed success, then what's the point in bringing him in?
Because nothing's a guaranteed success. But it's as good a chance as you're going to get, isn't it? You're just increasing your odds.
Who else are you going to get other than sticking with Carsley? Let's say Carsley they just don't fancy for whatever reason, Ryan. You know, and ultimately you could just get that. Who else would you go for then, English wise, if it wasn't Carsley?
I mean, it's either Eddie Howe or Graham Potter, and neither of them are going to win as a World Cup either. But
Eddie Howe's already said he doesn't want it.
Eddie doesn't want it, and he would cost too much. Graham Potter.
You think he'd have got the job already? So there must be a reason why he hasn't got the job.
The reason is that he had he was okay at Brighton. Okay, wasn't pulling up any
I wouldn't
trees.
say he was okay. He was better than okay at Brighton.
I think De Zerbi and Tuchel have got Chelsea. Brighton playing a lot better than Potter did.
He did, but Potter created what that team became, though.
Eddie?
No, he didn't.
I don't think he got a fair crack at
that.
I think he set the foundation.
That's their scouting team. He got them playing. Brighton were sort of a typical newly promoted minnow who would kick and run and all that sort of thing, and Potter made them a bit more progressive. But as soon as De Zerbi came in, considering that they didn't want to get rid of Potter, the improvement with De Zerbi was fairly instant and quite dramatic, I think.
If you ask the Brighton fans, they felt that Potter was it was all sideways passes and then, they're waiting for mistakes, possession, but without necessarily scoring goals.
Which was the same at Chelsea, wasn't it?
They created a lot of chances at Brighton. They were known as the XG Kings back then.
But it was also the issue with him at Chelsea, and it was also the issue with Southgate in the Euros this summer.
Interesting.
I just think it's worth sticking. I just don't think any other top tier nation even considers a foreign manager. We shouldn't be either. And if that means we have to wait another 10 years to develop a world class manager, fine.
So you want to do it? You want to be pure about it, basically.
Yeah.
Because every other nation doesn't want to have a foreign manager. England should be the same. Not go for that cream of the crop manager that give you the best chance of winning the trophy.
It's not that they actively don't want to. It's not that they actively don't want a foreign manager. It's that they develop managers. No, But the other nations, they don't go, oh, we don't want a foreign manager. But what they do when they've got a manager vacancy, they've got that bigger list of really high quality coaches that they can pick someone from their country with no drama. We need to get to that point, and we're not going to do it if we just go straight for the top manager available.
But we've been trying to do that.
Is that not
we
the
still haven't got it? So
the problem there? Is
we haven't. We've
no
had
one in the Premier League. We've had one managers. They'll go and get managers for the other countries.
Yeah, we've had one quite successful. We've had one quite successful stint with Southgate, who was brought up through the FA. They've tried to do it with Carsley. For whatever reason, that's not going to happen. But that doesn't mean you throw that entire plan away.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, before Southgate, we never had a half decent England manager since freaking Kevin Keegan and Bobby Robson.
It doesn't mean we should stop
England manager.
Yeah.
And that's like the early 90s. Do you know what I mean? So that you're looking at like, what, 30 years ago or something, whatever it is. 30 years, we've had 3 decent England managers. So you're saying that we've got to wait another 30 years before we get another one?
You've also had some big name. I mean, you had Fabio Capello. You know, he was the big manager. He won everything, and he did absolutely nothing. And most of the players really just didn't like playing for him.
And that's because he didn't get it. And Sven, I think you could probably say a bit differently. I think he did try and sort of ingratiate himself with the culture a bit more, but ultimately he was nowhere near successful either.
But another thing, Capello didn't get it because he had never managed in England before either. He didn't get the English. At least Tuchel's actually managed in England. He does
and he
get
lives in England.
Fans. And he lives in England. He gets the England fans. He gets the English people.
No other top tier nation is going to have a foreign manager. We're going to have 3 in the last 20 years, and that is why we're not going to win a trophy. And until we start producing managers of that caliber, we're not going to get anywhere near. That's my issue with it.
Ryan, what's your thoughts on Serena Wiegmann?
I think it's great that she won a trophy with England, but it would have been better if Emma Hayes had won
it.
There we go.
Well, I guess all we can really do is kind of wait and see what happens. I will certainly be hoping that he fails spectacularly.
I mean, I'm not
spectacularly.
Let me be clear.
Guy, now he's a dick.
I'm not like waving my blue passport, getting full Brexit about it. I've been an immigrant most of my life. I'm not. This is not what it's about. I just, I just don't see how a serious top tier country does this.
Well, I think we'll move on and talk about PSR a little bit, because we did say we were going to talk about that, and we've spent most of our time so far talking about the England manager. So PSR is, or as it used to be known, financial fair play, is rules by where clubs are only allowed to speculate to accumulate in terms of putting money into their own businesses up to a certain point, and it has to be based on how much profit they are currently making as a business. So these were new rules that were kind of brought in really in the last kind of 10 to 15 years. They've been coming in slowly and have been a factor. And I suppose from an outsider point of view, people will look at this and say, well, Mick and Cam are going to be like anti-PSR because they're Newcastle fans. And, but I just want to say before we even start this, and you guys are my backup, long before there was ever any hint of the Saudis buying Newcastle, back when the days when we still were in the dark days with Ashley, I was always against financial fair play in PSR as a principle. And I haven't really changed my mind on that. I don't think no other business in the world or industry runs their business and says, oh, we're not going to let you build your business up here. We're actually going to restrict you based on, how big you are at the moment, because it prevents, I do you imagine that happening in America? They'd call that communism in America. And yet that's what we seem to have here. And I just don't think it's fair. But of course, that's one point of view from me. And I know you guys have slightly different point of view. So who wants to jump in with their alternative point of view to that?
I'm totally with you, Cam. Completely with you. I've never liked this.
I don't know what to say on it, because I don't know what the solution can be, so I find it very hard to argue. And as a Chelsea fan, I feel like our entire business is run on how to comply with PSR, and it becomes less of a sport and more of a business, and that just takes the fun out of it. And that's my problem with it. But I don't know what we can do about it.
See, I disagree, Dave. I don't think Chelsea is about how to comply with PSR. I think Chelsea has been about how to exploit PSR.
Yeah, comply, exploit, same thing in Premier League, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, no, because Chelsea are not trying to follow the rules to help make the game more sustainable. They are trying to find ways around the rules so they can still have an advantage.
But still
complying
with the rules.
Any clubs who are following the rule with the goal of making the game more sustainable, Ryan, is there any clubs that are actually doing that, or are they all just trying to do whatever?
No, they're all
seem more likely what's best for me, because that's how a club's run.
They're all trying to find ways of ignoring the rules without getting punished, and
it's the same as the business world. You know, so in the business world, why would a business do what helps other businesses? They wouldn't. They would do what helps themselves. And
because
my issue is that for me,
other
businesses,
other businesses aren't part of a club. Other businesses aren't part of a conglomerate that collectively produce a product that they sell and all make money from, like the Premier League clubs are.
I would say you could have various different studios that might work like that, or under an umbrella corporation. We see studios sometimes working together on certain projects and things like that at times as well. But you know, they do have also a monopolies. You can't have monopolies, you know, and therefore, you know, there is an encouragement in business to introduce new players into it that can add more diversity, and then add, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? More variety into a business sector, and that's not really in football either. And I'm not saying it's absolutely a business; it is a different thing, but yeah,
I think the clubs are all in competition with each other on the pitch, but off the pitch and at boardroom level, where it gets a bit silly is they're all equal shareholders in the Premier League as a company and as a brand. They all agree to these rules ahead of time anyway, and being in the Premier League gets you that membership.
I'm just going to proof checker there, sorry. You know, like the CNBC presidential debates, 14 of the clubs need to agree for any rule to go on. The other 6 might not have agreed, so I'm just going to point that out to your point.
But that is the majority
have agreed.
That's
to
the same as any vote. You know, there'll be people who don't agree with the outcome.
The democratic vote,
but correct, collectively, the 20 clubs decide on how they themselves are governed, and the Premier League is the central figurehead. But they're not dictating to the clubs at all. It is the clubs deciding this between themselves.
Yeah,
they should be doing that. They should be doing that to protect the value of the Premier League as a brand, so that they can continue to sell it overseas and continue to make the shitloads of money that they're making from it.
I think there's a common misconception though, where, and a lot of fans fall into this category as well. I heard a fan talking about this the other day there, and I'm getting on to the point of the biggest clubs controlling the vote, because there are a lot of smaller clubs that know they can never compete and want to stay on the big clubs' side, and they don't necessarily want to see their rivals going up and going away from them. So there is I'm not saying it's necessarily 14 out of 20, and I don't know if that is the case anymore, but there is certainly, one could argue strongly that the PSR rules do absolutely nothing to help anyone but the clubs who are already the currently most successful, by the fact that they can continue to spend more money than all their rivals, no matter how much their owners are worth or anything. They can continue to outspend. They can continue to make mistakes in the transfer market, and it doesn't really matter, because they have enough money to fix that mistake at the next window, and so on and so forth. And realistically, the only reason you as a club are having any PSR restrictions at the moment is because of continued failures in the transfer market across many seasons. And other clubs just wouldn't have been able to do that. They would have been falling foul of PSR years ago, with the money that you've spent and then lost in value on players and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So does that not give you a big advantage that all you need to do is kind of get it right once and you're back? Whereas everybody else has to get it right every year to even have a chance at grabbing onto your coattails.
But equally, with every bad transfer window United are having, they fall further behind Man City, who can just do whatever they want. They fall further behind Arsenal, who invested in their infrastructure 20 years ago. They cut the cloth accordingly, and now they're in a position where they can start to invest, and they've invested smartly. Similar with Liverpool.
In what way? What would you say with Liverpool that they've cut their cloth when in the past? Exactly when they had poor owners that didn't want to put any money into the club.
So they've now got owners
who
invest
very much. Not very rich owners who are very scrupulous about what they spend.
But they've now invested. They've expanded their North Stand quite significantly. I don't know if it's a North Stand, but their main stand they've expanded quite significantly. Fine, they sold.
Who do you think that'll compare to a brand new Old Trafford, let's say, in 5 years' time, that's brand new built, 80,000 seater? What will people think about Anfield then?
You sort of missing my point. If we had acted smartly and been forward thinking 20 years ago when the Glazers came in, kept investing in the infrastructure in the club, kept making sure that the academy is the best academy in the country, which it was for a time, and then it really wasn't for a long time. Kept making sure that we had world-class training facilities. All of these things would leave us in a much stronger position now. As it is now, we've fallen well behind the other clubs in the off-the-pitch infrastructure, and we're still chasing the big, expensive, flashy signings that are going to keep the sponsorship money coming in. And we're moving further behind the clubs who are acting smartly.
My argument is that
anything on infrastructure,
you should be allowed to do that while other clubs can't.
Exactly.
Yeah, because all your infrastructure, any club can do that, and it doesn't count against the PSR.
But that's spending in infrastructure. That spending in infrastructure, which doesn't count towards PSR, leaves your club in a much better position, and it gives you much better tools to have more PSR headroom down the line.
The problem is, it's speculation.
But that's down to the owners just to go and do that.
If you want to be successful as a club, you need to be successful on the pitch to get new fans in worldwide and get people interested in you. Now, the Premier League's super popular in America. What's the 6 clubs that the people support? It's Man City, Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, and even Spurs. Even Mike, one of our other senior editors, is a Spurs fan because he picked them probably in the time when Pochettino wasn't managing them.
I think
Kale probably just picked Arsenal because there was a gun on them. I mean, if Scunthorpe had a gun on them, maybe he'd picked them. I don't know.
So you have to.
My point is that you need to be successful to grow your club.
You do.
And what they're doing at the now is saying, and this is absolutely fact, the Premier League have come out and said it wouldn't be fair for clubs who currently rely on regularly qualifying for Europe to suddenly be thrust out of that and have to deal with that new reality because somebody comes in that's got more money than them and just buys their way to success. Okay. My argument is that is how every single successful club in England became successful in the first place. Every single one of them. And the fact whether that happened in 1963 or it happened in 1955 or it happened in 1856, I don't care when it happened, but all of them, after they lifted the wage cap anyway, back in the wage cap days, it was slightly different. Once the wage cap was lifted, we went into an era of the biggest spending club would win the most trophies. Liverpool started it, and we've talked about this before. Liverpool, when they were still in the second division, were spending on football inflation terms, not proper inflation terms. Football inflation is far more than real inflation. They spent in the equivalent of £100 million on 2 players, roughly, while they were in the second division, to get them qualified into the first division Premier League. Now, they then spent another £100 million the next year, and Liverpool, after that point, were the highest spending club in England right through until Man United took over in the 90s. That's how big Liverpool were spending. The second biggest spending club, funnily enough, was the second most successful club in that time was Arsenal. And you can map this out. And I hate the fact that Liverpool fans say, "Oh, we built ourselves up for nothing." No, you went in and spent more money than everybody else. You started the spend more money, win trophies era. And they built a monopoly. So now that everybody says, "Oh, Liverpool, we've got this history of great success. We should be on the top shelf and above everybody else." I've heard fans say, "Oh, 70% of the people who watch games abroad are watching Man United and they're watching Liverpool," because that's the names they've heard because those are the teams that have been successful. Why should they have been allowed to do it back then, but no one's allowed to do it now? It's completely unfair.
Yeah.
So what we're saying now is you couldn't have a Blackburn anymore. Like Blackburn when they went and won the league in 1984 and Jack Walker just spent his own money. You can't have that anymore. Can't be done. They wouldn't be allowed to do that.
So going back to your original point in that clubs who rely on European income shouldn't be expected to suddenly do without it because the club's done better than them. I agree that's a load of nonsense. My issue is there is that much money in the game now and that much money at stake that all of the thinking is incredibly short-termist. All of the thinking is about preserving that European money, not about building a squad that can win a trophy. It's about, can we get into the Champions League? It doesn't matter if we get battered the next season in the Champions League, as long as we've got that money coming in. And a big part of that is you've got entire countries owning football clubs, and everybody else thinks that they need to spend that much money to keep up. That's where the limit has to come in, because there is always going to be an imbalance of resource. But the resource behind the state-owned clubs just far outweighs anything that anybody else has ever had. And it's the only way to keep up with that is for every single club in the league to be owned by an entire fucking country, and that is massively bad for the sport,
I disagree
for
with that.
British cultural institutions, for local communities. It's just bad.
I'll agree with you in the fact that I don't think it's good that states own club, and I've said that even though I know it's not officially a state owned, like there's some red tape wrangling, but we all know the truth behind both our owners and City's owners, that they really are state owned. PSG are the other ones, and I think those two the other two have demonstrated that they can just spend ridiculous money. Yeah. Although PSG are far the worst offenders compared to even City in terms of just egregiously spending crazy amounts of money that they just should never have had to try and buy success. So I agree with you that states shouldn't have really been able to own clubs. I'm not going to argue against you on that one. But I also feel that it's not so much the threat of the fact that it's state-owned clubs and that's why they're bringing these rules in. I feel that it's more, the top clubs not wanting somebody to come in, because those owners don't want to sell their clubs. They don't want to sell it to somebody richer because they're making money off it. They're quite happy to sit where they are. So it's not in their interest to have somebody that can come in and spend more money than them.
I disagree on that.
Club more successful.
I disagree on that. United have just been up for sale. Liverpool have been up for sale. Spurs are up for sale.
The Spurs ultimate owner, that Joe whatever guy, is worth a fortune, but he doesn't put a lot of his own money into the club. I'm not sure what the Arsenal situation is, but far as I know, they kind of spend their own money as well. I think they've had a loan off their owner or something like that. And so did Liverpool at one point. The Glazers, to be fair, have took money out of your club every year since they've owned it. This is where I think it as a profit-making machine.
I think this is where PSR is important, though, because you have owners like the Glazers who borrowed a shitload of money to buy the club. They put that debt against the club, basically mortgaged it against the club. They've invested nothing into the club over the last 20 years, taken money out, like you said, but all of the infrastructure's been allowed to fall to shit. All of the academy's been allowed to fall to shit. And it's all of the money spent has been made by the club, basically. Go on.
Can I just say something? Was that sound like you, Cam? the last fucking 14 years that we had under Mike Ashley. And then we had
the
fact that he was plastering.
The solution to that.
Hang on 1 second. That he was plastering Sports Direct all over the place, all over our stadium. He was plastering them all over with shirts and all these sponsorships. And how much did he pay Newcastle for that? Nothing. Where was the fair market value there? Where was people uproaring there with the fair market value for Newcastle sponsorships? Not a thing from anybody.
To be fair, though, I think what Ryan's saying though is that I will let you say for yourself.
I mean, yeah, that doesn't mean that just because you've got small plucky, your local billionaire owning the club doesn't mean that just because they're shit at running. You know what I mean? Just your average run-of-the-mill billionaire owning a club doing a bad job of it doesn't mean that the other option has to be state ownership. That
wasn't about that. He just sold to the next person that would buy.
I don't know. I think you're just arguing nothing then, to me, honest, Mick, because you're not really responding to anything I'm saying there.
I am. You're talking about how badly run your club is.
I'm not trying to say what
badly run ours is as well. Ours was as well.
Well, I'll give you another example then.
That's the bad side of PSR.
I'll give you another example then.
In terms of how your owners were allowed to behave. Is that
I'll give you another example then, because everyone is quite keen to say that smaller clubs aren't allowed to spend any money. I think that's a load of bollocks. Aston Villa, 6 years ago, were in the Championship. They've got a wealthy owner. Yes, they sold Jack Grealish for a shitload of money, but they have been spending a good 150 million a season, every season. And they've got from the Championship 6 years ago to the Champions League. Now, if their owners had invested in the stadium to try and expand it, other things to make the club more sustainable so it doesn't need that injection every year, they'd be allowed to spend that money. But they've still been allowed to spend a shitload of money. But they need to still make the books line up so that if it does go wrong and they do fall out of Europe, it's not a catastrophe. You know, it's Newcastle have been allowed to spend their way into Europe.
Well, yeah, we've spent like about 600 million in the last 3 years.
Yeah. So I don't think
any club should be allowed to spend, but the point is that in the past, clubs could spend whatever their owners were willing to spend, and I just don't agree in a business where an owner shouldn't be allowed to invest in their business. I mean, the example I was going to use the other day there is, let's say, if you look at, I don't know if any of you have watched that Richard Hammond's Workshop, right? So he basically was finishing Top Gear, he's making a business, so he gets these people that are in a shit dump, but he knows they're talented, and he's pumped money in. He's pumped in 200, 300,000 of his own money. The business was running at a loss for years, and he's doing all this with the aim at, I don't want to go in and start my business at very small and build it up. I want to go in, invest into it, make it really big, get it popular and out there, known to everybody, to get the bigger money back in quicker and get a return on my investment. What PSR does is prevents that business tactic from being allowed, Ryan. You're not allowed to do that anymore. You have to do the slow build-up now.
And
why is that fair?
That is because what happens when Richard Hammond picks a bad one, what happens when the TV studios get bored of him so they're not going to fund his show, the business would go up the bunk. That business fails.
Or his money, he loses his money.
And in Richard Hammond's case, that's just some guy. But in a football club's case, that is 100-plus-year-old institution with massive ties to the local community that does things well beyond playing a game of football every weekend.
It's not a business.
Take it so make it so that the
take it from so my picture behind me is my local club's 7th tier Hampton Waterlooville, right? I've paid for a season ticket there, so every other week I go down there to watch a football match. But that pitch behind me is running 7 days a week for local six-a-sides, for a weight loss group that I'm part of and I play games for Portsmouth women's team train there. They do holiday sessions for kids during the week, during the holidays. They do all sorts of local community engagement that if somebody came in and bought them, dicked around with them for a bit and then got bored and left them with a massive tax bill, all of that goes away just because one guy's got an ego and thinks he can go and buy the league.
But here's the thing though, right? That can happen right now with the PSR rules, because you can have MD comes in and says, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Then they get in there and go, no, I'm just going to take money out of the club and I don't give a shit, right? Anybody can do that with any club, and there's nothing in any of the rules that stops them doing that. You can buy any business and decide to take money out of that business if you want to.
Yeah.
Right? That's not what PSR is preventing. There's clubs really struggling in that respect in the Championship all the time. Look at Everton's situation. Is PSR helping them because one of their guys went in and tried to spend too much money, and now they can't get themselves out of the situation because the owner just didn't have enough money to do what he wanted to do? They should fail for that. They should potentially face relegation. I agree that they shouldn't necessarily be going out of business, but an owner should be forced to sell the business for buttons because they can no longer afford to run it, and that gives somebody else the opportunity to come in. Maybe not as rich, but say, okay, I'm going to come in. I don't have the debts, and I'm going to now build it up slowly, and we're going to do things in a different way, or I'm going to keep it going until such time as somebody with a bit more money is willing to come in and invest, and so on and so forth. And we've seen that happen with so many clubs that have been bought and run well. It's the odd. It's like 5 or 6 out of all the clubs in the Football League that have been bought by real bandits and destroyed from the inside out, and every one of them has happened while financial fair play has been in part of it in PSR. The other argument I would say is in terms of PSR, and so on the top end of it is, so you've got these state-owned clubs that are putting in, they want to put in billions. Where is that money going ultimately? If they spend $1 billion, let's say Newcastle spent $1 billion on transfer fees in one window, just something crazy like that Chelsea would do, right? And Newcastle went and did that. Right? Let's just say where that's money that's coming out of these dictators that everybody hates. And where's that money going? Going to all those smaller clubs that have produced good players.
Trickle-down economics.
That can't afford to keep them and can sell them. It's money going into the game. There's now, already that enough money is not going into the game. But that's the crazy. That's like Christian saying, there's enough money in entertainment. Let's not do anything to rock the boat. I don't want to make any more money. We're already making enough. Sorry, Ryan. That's communist talk. That is socialist talk, and that's to me is politics. That's just not how a capitalist. No, but whether you wish it did work like that, that's not how a capitalist society works. It just isn't.
My issue with that is the rules as they are at the moment, and they are changing to be more in line with what you guys want. But the rules as they are at the moment
it's not what we want. It's Bob lawfulness.
It is moving more towards really something more favourable to the clubs, shall we say, rather than having to go directly at you two. Yeah? The rules at the moment...
No, I'm not sure about that.
The rules at the moment are over a 3-year period, you can make a loss of in excess of £100 million without falling foul of the rules.
That 105 million or something.
105 million pounds. It is absolutely insane to say it's completely acceptable to lose that amount of money, and that if you're being punished for losing more than that, it's unreasonable. It's it's ridiculous to think that is at all sustainable given the amounts of money that are in the game. And the only reason it's not sustainable is because of the massive budgets of state clubs and other clubs trying to keep up. It's because championship clubs now have to spend that money to get out of the championship, and if they don't, they're in trouble.
But that money's trickling down, so they're constantly, their budgets are going up. That's the inflation of
football. It really doesn't.
That's like saying that Scunthorpe are still playing their players the same wages they were in 1978 because are they? No, they've went up as well. They've just went up at a smaller degree than as the bigger clubs go up as well. The game gets more money in it overall.
So where's the state-owned clubs' money coming from then?
Themselves, the money that they already have.
Where are they getting it from?
I don't think we want to go down that road. I don't think we want to go down that.
Where's Musk getting it from? Where does the US get its money from? I mean, where are we going with this?
I just think there's a lot of willful ignorance about the rules. There is a lot of talk that the rules are currently forcing clubs to sell their academy players on June 30th. They're not. On June 30th, clubs that don't on June 30th, clubs that don't have their affairs in order need to make a quick buck, and the academy player is the quickest way of doing that. That is not the fault of the rules. That is the fault of the clubs trying to get around it.
Bad planning across that year, yeah. But my argument earlier on, though, was that we are in a position where we can't afford to make a mistake. So if we made the mistake we made last year was Tonali, we bought Tonali and Enigate. That was a big mistake. We couldn't have afforded to do that. And it potentially, you could say it cost us Europe. And that cost us having to sell those academy players this summer. What I'm saying is, if that had happened to you as a club, you wouldn't have had to do that. Unless you'd had all the years of mismanagement. If straight after the Fergie era, let's say, if that had happened to you, you would have just said, we'll take it as a loss. Yeah. We can afford that. Who cares? And a business should be allowed to take a loss if the owners are willing to take it. That's kind of my point as well. It's like saying, when Disney have a bad year, do you say, you should get punished for that now because you had a bad year, you didn't make money? No, their shareholders will go, different people in charge. We don't want you running the place anymore. You've not made us any money. That's kind of how business works. And ultimately, the shareholders of a club do that with the managers. They do that with the staff that's running the club as well. But they want to make money long term. And ultimately, it becomes a battle of businesses. Who's got the biggest? Who's willing to push on and go the furthest, right? And if there is a state-owned club, let's say, that have got lots of money, they are more likely to just keep pushing through and saying, we'll keep pushing until we're one of the biggest teams. The problem is it's current teams that don't have that much money that will fall by the wayside. Now, what's to say they shouldn't just, cut their cloth and say, do you know what? We're not a big six team anymore. We're going to have to behave like the smaller clubs did in the past. We're going to have to bring our academy players up. We just can't afford to compete with these new big clubs. Too bad. That's life. That's business. Do you know what I mean? That's how we change eras. That's how it's always happened. Somebody's got money and they've bought success.
Yeah. One thing I would say is that still happens. There is still upward mobility in the league. You right at the start, you said there's the big six. Yeah, there's the big Sky Six that everyone moans about that ruin everything. 15 years ago, that was a top four. That was Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Chelsea. 10 years before that, Chelsea forced their way into that. Yeah, and you had Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool. Spending. Yeah, but there was the big four of Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea. It was a big deal when City got in there. It was a big deal when Spurs forced their way in there and managed to keep pace long enough to be part of that six. You've now got the entire top half of the table. I think you from Liverpool from Liverpool downwards. You have got clubs that have realistic ambitions of getting Europa League football every season. Yeah? That didn't happen 10 years ago. 15 years ago.
I agree. But I'm not getting your point. That's because the big clubs had more money than them and they couldn't compete, though.
And now...
Because you had the four clubs that spent more money than everybody else always being the top four clubs.
So the only time
it wasn't was when occasionally Spurs spent a lot of money, or Newcastle back in the the mid-90s. We spent a lot of money. We occasionally creeped in, stopped spending the money, and we went, Spurs did the same.
You've got rules that are looking at making sure clubs are sustainable and do grow in ways that are good for the game. You've got upward mobility still. You've still got clubs being able to spend their way up the league. The issue is clubs that don't want to respect rules that are trying to make the game sustainable. Clubs that don't care if they win 5 trophies in the next 5 years, but the game is demonstrably worse off as a result. That's the issue. The issue is
adding more money to the game is suddenly going to be bad when it's been the thing that made the Premier League the best league in the world. There was no money in the league back then, and then
what's happening is
buying the clubs and it became huge. It just became bigger and bigger and bigger.
Because what's happening is clubs are now starting to buy up. They're starting up multi-club models as a way of getting more profitable, so the money just gets swapped around themselves anyway. They are waiting until the end of their deadline to fix their books rather than doing it sustainably. They're not really investing in their infrastructure. They're looking for shortcuts rather than trying to. There is a way to make the game better for everybody at the same time as being able to compete. That's what I would say.
I think the problem is that, Ryan, from my point of view, you're too much of an idealist. I can see how what you think. You're thinking of the good of the game. You're not just thinking about your club. I just don't think there's enough people out there that are, and no one else cares about that. None of the fans care about it. They only care about their own club.
Yeah.
None of the owners care about that either. And, it's good that you're an idealist, but that's just not how the world works. And trying to force people into that way of thinking, to me, it just won't work. And that's why we're having so many problems at the moment with people appealing against things, because the rules that we've set up in this capitalist society just don't support
these rules have been proven to be unlawful and against against competition law, UK competition law. Yes, they have. It's come out. The rules that Man City went against, right, with all the sponsorships, are against competitive UK law. Yes or no?
Yes, it is more complex than that.
These PSR
I think it is
rules
more complex than that, to be fair.
I'll be honest, mate, with the greatest respect, a lot of what you've been saying in our group chat has been just straight parroting of a headline rather than overall consideration of the issue. It has. And it is more complex than that. What I think this whole thing has proven is that the Premier League themselves aren't fit to govern themselves. There does need to be an independent regulator who does have the overall state of the game in mind, rather than the Premier League clubs
as long
doing
as
what is
they're
right
not,
for them.
Because we talked about this, and I'd said I don't want that to be somebody for the government, because the government to me are more susceptible to corruption than anybody else, than the Premier League, who even runs themselves. I think the Premier League have a problem, though, that if they do have these independent regulators, they can't be influenced by. Sorry, what's that, Kyle?
I said that was pretty American of you right there. The government is likely to be more corrupt. That's very American of you. I'm
excited. I just think that's true of almost all governments. Your government, our government, Spain's government, Germany's government, and they're all bloody the same. And let's not even.
I love it. Preach down with the government.
Yeah, I'm not an anarchist either, though. We do actually need to have rules and stuff like that. It's just that power corrupts, and ultimately, absolute power corrupts. Absolutely, you get into that, and that's where we are. We are a couple of certainly the first world country governments. But people are just out looking for a buck. So I would worry that they would be unduly influenced. So if it's an independent commission, very heavily monitored to make sure that there's no outside influences happening to that, and that it's focused on the good of the game, not keeping the Premier League the way it is.
It shouldn't be that there's a minister for football. It should be that there is a football equivalent of Ofsted or Ofgem, or those sorts of organisations who are publicly funded, but do not change based on how the election goes. They're not. They're people who are experts in what they're doing, and they are removed from the parties that they're trying to govern. That is what we need.
I mean, I wouldn't be against that if it is set up. I just don't trust, because it's ultimately it'll be the government that sets this up in the Premier League, and I just don't trust them. I could see us having this conversation in 10 years' time, and we're sitting there going, yeah, they were shit. Look at all the corruption that happened. Remember when Jimmy Sanders found that he was getting paid holidays to Barbados by Man City and stuff. That's what I'm just envisaging in the future, and I hope it doesn't happen, but that's my worry. And ultimately then it'll be the richest clubs that are willing to kind of stick their neck out the most. I don't want us to end up like Italy, where everybody just lies and I'm not being racist against Italy as a country. I'm talking about the Italian Football League, which is proven to be full of cheating clubs and owners for almost its entire history. It's the most corrupt league in the world without a doubt. You know, Juventus have been formally charged for corruption many times, so have AC Milan, so, you know, and so on and so forth. And I know many fans have said that a lot of clubs got away with it and stuff like that as well. Like Inter Milan famously got away with one when somebody else get done for it and things like that. And I don't want us to end up like that either, where, you know, and I could see it going that way because of the PSR rules, because everybody's trying to
already that
corner,
it already is that way.
Somebody's going to go too far.
It already is that way. It's only an issue now.
Maybe
because,
not quite.
Because...
Are we quite at the point of envelopes under the tables?
Well, no,
though? I mean, maybe we are. I hope not. But
it's only come to a head now because clubs have actually started getting punished by it. You know, that's the only reason that other clubs are panicking about it.
Oh yeah, I agree with you on that. There was a definite reaction this year after the points deductions that happened last year. 100%. You know. You know, again, I don't agree they should get a point deduction. I just think the idea of that, you didn't do very well as a business last year, so we're going to charge you a wee bit more money, or we're going to, you know, that's kind of what it feels like. It feels like the tax man saying you made less money last year and we're going to take more tax off you to give people a points deduction for making bad business decisions. You know, I just don't. It doesn't make sense to me. I know there needs to be punishments, and fines won't help.
It should be the owner. It should be the owner that gets punished, not the club.
How do you punish an owner if they're not a member of like FIFA or the league? What function would you use to you're getting fined? Fuck off. We're going to charge you.
There should be something in there where you can punish the owner, where you can fine the owner. There's got to be something there. It shouldn't be the club.
It's saying there should be something there, like saying there should be something there that poor people aren't poor and kids never go hungry in the world. Yeah, there should be, but it doesn't exist.
Nah, fines are rubbish because fine is just a cost of doing bad business, you know, or it's a cost of it. If you started trying to fine Man City, they would factor that into their running costs. Basically,
for a club that will
have to make it hurt.
But at the same time, see, for a club who are actually struggling financially, then fining them is just ridiculous, quite frankly. So, what were you going to say, Kyle? Sorry.
No, I was just saying you have to make a fine hurt. That's all. Like,
yeah,
Brian's right. Yeah. A lot of times, fines don't mean jack to whoever it is. Like a business, a sports club, even a player. Sometimes players will laugh off fines depending, but you can make it hurt enough, especially if it's aimed not at players but at, you know, management and whatnot.
Put it this way. So I used to, on an annual basis, take my kids out of school for a week in February to go to Centre Parks with them every year because it was a third of the price. Yeah, and every year I'd get a fine for taking my kids out of school, and it was still a hell of a lot cheaper than taking.
What?
Yeah.
You get what?
That's not important. That's not important. Yeah.
What?
That's not the important part. But what I'd quite happily pay that fine because it's a hell of a lot cheaper than taking them during the school holidays. Yeah.
You pay the double.
So what they've done is if you say, right, I can afford this fine, the next year that fine triples. Right, and then the next year it triples again, and then they start prosecuting you and all that sort of thing. So I've gone, right, we're not doing that holiday anymore.
We need to talk about this when the show's over.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. and I suppose, I don't know, I mean, Dave, Mick, have you got anything that you want to add? Because it has mostly been me and Ryan.
I'm sick of the subject.
Before we finish up.
I just wish we were all like, I just feel all like Germany, we're just like majority fan owned. Yeah.
I mean, is that maybe a potential solution that you just can't have a company own any more than 49% of your club? It seems to work.
Yeah, but how do we get back into that position to be able to do that?
I know. How do you go back to that?
Like,
you can't say to a person, you have to sell so much of your club at a really poor fee to the fans. You know, it's just not going to happen.
Too many people would have to leave too much money on the table for that to happen, unfortunately. And that is my main. That is my main gripe. Is that my main gripe is that, as with a lot of things, a lot of really questionable stuff is justified by the fact that you can make more money out of it. That's my main gripe with all of it.
I think that's again going to some of your political views, though, which I'm not saying I don't share, but I'm playing more devil's advocate, and I think that's the, Ryan, Labour supporter, socialist coming out in you.
I'm not a Labour.
Get together.
I'm not a Labour supporter at all. I've only voted Labour once in my life, and that was when they actually had a socialist in charge.
I just think it's exactly. You're quite a lefty, but I think there's also a lot of naivety in that, and that people that are very left, it's like, I want the world to be a better place, but I have no idea how to make that work. So
the opposite part of this is
bringing that into this.
The opposite side to that is you say that. So I've had this argument before with Mason Greenwood, in that if I was in charge of United when the allegations about Mason Greenwood came out, I would rip up his contract there. Don't give a shit how much it costs. He can fuck off. That's it.
Yeah.
And I've had discussions with people online about that, about why would United willingly give up all that sort of money, and my response was, because there are more important things than the cost of one guy's contract.
Yeah, again, but you're being principled, and I think if you are a billionaire, you have got to be a billionaire by not being that principled or thinking about the little man. None of them do. You can't become a billionaire by thinking like that.
Yeah, fine, but that doesn't make them good people, or it doesn't make that the choices that they make are justified. People. No?
I'm not saying they're good people. I'm just saying that's how the world works, and they control how businesses function. They make the rules, they lobby the politicians. You have to sometimes live in the world you live in, rather than, I'm not saying we shouldn't try to change things, but, ultimately we are where we are.
Mick's falling asleep, guys. I think Mick's falling asleep.
Mick's falling asleep. Right. Well, we can wrap it up. Is there anything else wants to say? Because we've
still got to discuss predictions.
We still got predictions.
There's football. There's actual football to think about.
So Kyle, Kyle, wake up. Oh, he's fell asleep. If you could bring up our predictions for next week, because we will get back. Regular programming will resume next week. We will be back discussing the next week's Premier League fixtures. Looking at the games that are on, is there any particular ones you guys are excited to see this week?
Liverpool versus Chelsea. That's the one that stands out. And I think I will be missing it, maybe.
Top 4 match. I mean, potentially a title. What day is it? Is it Sunday afternoon? Is it?
It's the big Sunday one.
4:30, I think.
The mid-Sunday one. Oh, yeah. Good. I'm glad it's not the 4:30 one. That one's always crap when the big teams.
No, it is that one. It is that one.
It is.
Right. Okay.
Newcastle Brighton could be a good game.
Yeah.
That's the other one I was thinking about. I mean, it's actually a 6-pointer. We've both got exactly the same points in the table, and they're just slightly ahead in goal difference at the moment. So it's a 6-pointer.
Two really.
Is it not in the telly, that one, Ryan?
No. What? Newcastle Brighton. No, it's a 3 o'clock. It's 3 o'clock, same as United Brentford. But there's two quite big ones down the bottom. So there's Ipswich versus Everton, and there's Southampton versus Leicester. And those are both massive games for those teams.
For the bottom of the league, yeah.
So
it will be an interesting weekend.
Oh, Brentford are higher, aren't they? Where are Brentford?
I mean,
Brentford are doing all right so far,
I mean, the only interesting thing about that game is whether we can keep them out for 5 seconds with no fullbacks, because we've got Malacia and Shaw are still in the shadow realm. Mazraoui, over the course of the international break, underwent heart surgery, so we've got Diogo Dalot as our only actual actual fullback. So we're going to have either Lindelof or Martinez at fullback, or we're going to have a literal child there. So that's going to be fun with how Brentford.
I'd love to see somebody do against Brentford if they get the centre, and you see all the Brentford players getting ready to rush forward. It's just do it the same to them. It's just nobody at the end just score a goal against them in the first 5 seconds ago. That'll be the end of that then.
This is what happened against Wolves. Is the only reason that they didn't score within the first minute was that they didn't have to kick off, but they still scored after about 70 seconds anyway. So,
although there was one of the games where somebody scored into them fairly quickly as well, so it is high risk, high. But what they're hoping to do is get ahead and then hope they stay there for the rest of the game, kind of thing.
And that has been their issue. They've got those early goals, but it's only really resulted in one win, hasn't it? So,
Yeah, it will be an interesting. I think it will be an interesting set of games to talk about when we come back next time, and we will be back next week. I believe all four of us. Nobody's off next week at the moment, unless something happens between now and then. So we will be back to our regular programming with Team of the Week and Moment of the Week and all that good stuff. But since it was international break, we just figured we would have one of our debates that we have with each other all the time live on the show in case anybody else was interested in it as well. So thanks very much for watching and staying with us all the way through. And I guess leave us your own thoughts on this whole situation as well in the comments. What do you think about this? You know, do you agree with and if you're going to agree or disagree, let us know who you support as well, because I think whoever somebody supports can have a very big influence on how they go in this argument either way. So that'd be cool as well. Any last words, lads?
Just throw any insults you have for me my way. I can take it.
Totter. Man United.
Check us out and check out Genreverse while you're on there as well. And remember lrmonline.com as well for any written news if you want to see. I'm reviewing The Penguin at the moment, and I would say it's the best show of 2024 that I've seen so far. That's how good it is. So if any of you haven't seen it yet, go start watching The Penguin. It is fantastic.
Do you have to watch the Batman? Week, yeah, I assume you probably do.
Is it like Happy Feet?
Sorry?
Oh, God's sake. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.